today. Gather round, everyone. It's time to watch one unsatisfactory firework. This is CheckPoint. Welcome to CheckPoint, where today is Observed Canada Day.
Technically, Canada Day was yesterday, but since that was a Sunday and no one wanted to do any work, the holiday isn't until actually today.
Maybe next year we can extend the holiday even further. If we all agree to not observe it, it could be Canada Day forever. Barely a week since Sony's crossplay issues with Fortnite were resolved. I'm sorry, what was that? They were not resolved in any way. And in fact, Sony was kind of dismissive of the whole issue. Right, barely a week since Sony's awful PR surrounding crossplay issues continued unabated, Bethesda's Todd Howard casually blamed Sony for a lack of cross-platform play in the upcoming Fallout 76. In an interview with German gaming publication GameStar, Howard said, quote, "You cannot do crossplay in 76. We'd really love that, but right now we can't. Sony is not as helpful as everyone would like," which isn't so much throwing shade at Sony as it is just shrouding Sony in an inky black darkness from which no good can escape. And a reminder, this is purely a policy issue on Sony's end. Both Rocket League and Fortnite have previously had configuration issues that briefly allowed PS4 players the joy of crossplay before Sony quickly lowered the portcullis and stacked a bunch of crates in front of it. Thus far, Sony's reaction has been a deafening refrain of "we hear your concerns." The corporate non-answer that says, somewhere inside our building a lot of people are yelling at one another, and once somebody breaks, we'll get back to you. Last week, Sean Layden, president and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment America, told Eurogamer, quote, "We're hearing it. I'm confident we'll get to a solution which will be understood and accepted by our gaming community." Which, if nothing else, shows a staggering level of optimism, considering the gaming community traditionally doesn't even understand or accept things that they like.
Fortnite is up to more map-altering shenanigans, but this time it's with a rocket instead of a meteor. After a few days of being teased with a countdown, players logged into Fortnite on Saturday to finally see the much-hyped rocket launch, which ended up not exploding a portion of the map as many people thought it would, but instead cracking a hole in the sky itself and creating pockets of strange waving energy. The rocket launch, which was viewable to anyone logged into Fortnite on Saturday, was basically this generation's version of appointment viewing. Most players ceased hostilities and instead worked together to build viewing scaffolds in order to appreciate the spectacle. Except one dude named Elemental Ray, who now holds Fortnite's single match kills record, as he was able to take out 48 players at once by demolishing their viewing platform. As of yet, nobody knows what the crack in the sky will lead to, but my favorite theory comes from the Kotaku comment section, where some people are speculating that the characters from other failed Battle Royale titles are desperately trying to escape doom by opening a gateway to a realm with an active player base.
Some time ago, an exploit was discovered in the Nintendo Switch firmware that has now led to hacking group Team Executor creating some exploited Switch firmware that allows for installation of pirated software. But pirates will eat themselves, and that exploited firmware itself has anti-piracy code that prevents it from running unless you pay the license fee for the pirate firmware. Though Team Executor denies it, there are reports of the firmware threatening to brick consoles if the license fee isn't paid. Meanwhile, a different Switch hacking team, Team Reswitched, is trying to hack Team Executor's anti-piracy code, not only because they feel the entire thing is antithetical to, quote, the morals and values of the homebrew community, but also because apparently Team Executor's code used some of Team Reswitched's code, which is in violation of the open source license they released it under. But, like, Executor gives a shit, and why would you give your payment information to a group of pirates? If you're going to just spend money, then buy the games. It's more expensive, but it's easier. You don't have to know how to code. You're not giving your information to someone who calls themselves Team Executor in all seriousness. And the only thing that's going to brick your Switch is something as unlikely as using a third-party accessory.
As part of the celebrations surrounding the 30th anniversary of Mega Man, Capcom is re-releasing all the Mega Man X games for current generation consoles and is making a big change. The boss names in Mega Man X5 will no longer be Guns N' Roses references. For any confused viewers out there who are nothing more than doe-eyed babos in 2001 when the game was released, Guns N' Roses were a phenomenally popular rock band in the late 80s and early 90s, and some clever scamp on the localization team inexplicably decided to change the original Japanese character names to be Guns N' Roses references. So Spike Rose Red became Axel the Red, Crescent Grizzly changed to Grizzly Slash, Tidal Whale became Duff McWhalen, Dark Necrobat was renamed Dark Dizzy after keyboardist Dizzy Reed, and there's some good music trivia for you, and Burn Dino Rex became the extremely bad Matrex after drummer Matt Sorum. This is a good move because while lots of Mega Man characters have musical references in their names, think bass, roll, reggae, tango, and treble, just to name a few, the GNR references have aged about as well as Axl Rose, which is to say, not at all. So allow me to propose some new musician pun names because as a smartass who likes games and music, I'm extremely qualified to make these suggestions. Spike Rose Red becomes Smith Ambrose Red, Crescent Grizzly shifts neatly to Cook Graisley, Tidal Whale becomes Tidal Walker, Dark Necrobat can be Dark Skinner, and of course, Burn Dino Rex should be Stu Maconex.
Was that all painful setup just so you could make an extended and extremely indulgent King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard reference?
Well, sort of. Capcom needs to add 2 more bosses because there are actually 7 people in King Giz, and I don't want to leave out Michael Kavanagh or Eric Moore because that's both drummers in the band, and they're very important because the band needs 2 drummers.
How is this in any way an improvement?
Because now it's a joke I get.
Cool. Goodbye.
Coming up, Overwatch's news character is a tiny, adorable, and totally reckless driver named Hammond. I mean, technically the character is the mech and it's named Wrecking Ball, but we can all agree that name honks and we're not using it ever. Eric Moore is...
You just want louder drummers?
Eric Moore is credited as drums, management, so I think they like him so much they're like, 2 drummers, why not? More drums!